Go to your screen now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the November 28th Farmington Hills City Council meeting. I'm calling the regular meeting to order, and we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Calling the regular meeting to order, and Ms. Smith, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Bruce.
Here.
Council members Knoll. Here. Massey.
Here.
Newland.
Here.
Holdaware.
Here.
Bridges.
Here.
I'll note that Mayor Barnett is absent.
Thank you. All right. I think we need a motion to accept the agenda as published.
Yep.
Dr. Massey.
Dr. Bruce, I would move that we approve the agenda as published.
Support.
Support by Mr. Bridges. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, our agenda is approved. Next item is the introduction of the new police canine, Ozzy. Chief?
Good evening, Council, City Manager. It's a great day to be here to introduce our newest member of our department, the K-9 team of Officer Zach Kozel and Ozzy. Officer Kozel served the U.S. Army from 2013 to 2016 when he was honorably discharged at the rank of corporal. He then started with our department and has served in the capacity as a police officer and evidence technician prior to being selected as our newest K-9 handler. He's received a total of 10 citations and awards for his work and service during that time, including being selected as the 2021 Farmington Hills Police Department American Legion Police Officer of the Year. His more vocal partner over there that you hear is named Ozzy. Ozzy is a German Shepherd, purebred, born in March of 2021 to a private kennel located in Liberec in the Czech Republic. Ozzy was selected by Shallow Creek Kennels in Pennsylvania for his initial obedience training. In August of this year, Ozzy was selected by Officer Kozel and the Farmington Hills Police Department for his newest assignment. They jointly attended 7 weeks of training focused on patrol operations, tracking, and most importantly, explosives detection and evidence recovery. They are now fully certified in those roles. In order for Ozzy and Officer Kozel to maintain that certification, part of his duties will include 1 8-hour day of training per week for the rest of his career. That will maintain his National Association of Professional Canine Handlers certification. In addition to that, the team will be attending a federally funded bomb materials course in early 2023, supported by the Michigan State Police Department. And now it's my honor to introduce Officer Kozel and Ozzy.
First off, I want to thank my chief, city council, all the citizens that came by. This is a dream come true. I never thought this would be possible. Very blessed. Truly, from a little kid, I thought this would never be possible, and I'm very happy, and everyone here helped make it in some way or fashion. I want to thank my wife, who puts up with me and now him, because without her, I cleared it with her before I even put in for the spot, but she's been super supportive. I had no idea how much this would change our lives in a good way, but it's definitely changed, so I want to thank her very much. And just I can't wait. A little bit on Ozzy, as you can see, he's very ball driven, but this dog wants to work constantly. If I didn't have a ball, he'd be trying to find bombs left and right. He'll be all over the place, but we'll rein it in. He's still young. So just overall, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? All right, thank you very much, Officer. Okay, item number 3, presentation and acceptance of the city's fiscal year 2021-2022 audit results. And Mr. Action, okay?
Tom's going to handle this, our finance director.
Yes, hello, Tom Scarola, Finance Director. I'm going to introduce to you Jamie Rivette from Yo and Yo. Yo and Yo is our certified public accountants who conduct our external annual audit. And so without further delay, I introduce to you Jamie Rivette.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I am Jamie Rivette. I'm an audit partner at Yo and Yo CPAs, and tonight I'm going to go over the highlights from the audit that was completed for your June 30th, 2022 audit. First of all, I just wanted to point out really that the purpose of the audit is to provide opinions on the financial statements. And Department of Treasury requires every municipality in the state of Michigan to have an annual audit done performed by an independent CPA firm. And really, it's management's responsibility for the preparation and fair presentation of those financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And then as your auditors, what happens is my team and I come in, we audit that information presented, and then we issue you an opinion on it. And the city was issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance offered. It means there's no material modifications that need to be made to those financial statements. I also want to point out that the city did receive their Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association for their June 30th, 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which is a great completion and a job well done, so congratulations. On the first slide that we have, now we're getting into the numbers, is we do have the bar graph for your general fund revenue, expenditures, and other financing sources and uses, as well as the fund balance that's plotted on the green line here. Just a couple things that I'll point out, really comparing 2021 to your 2022 year. So we did have for revenues, the blue chart there that did increase. The majority of that increase is related to an increase in the state shared revenue. So the state did have additional funding this year that they were able to allocate out to the local municipalities, as well as an increase over last year in our charges for services. So this was the first full year where the COVID regulations had been lifted. We had more indoor activities, so you had your cultural, youth, and senior activities then that had a full year. So we did see an increase in those charges for services for hockey, swimming, and your other fitness programs. Now, your total expenditures also increased over last year, which is the red bar there. The majority of that increase was related to the Hawk. We had, additional wages, benefits, as well as maintenance and some contractual services, which did lead, because our revenue exceeded our expenditures, did lead to an increase in our fund balance, and which is the green line charted there, which was $47.2 million at the end of June 30th. On my next slide now, we have a pie chart that we have where we're combining your general fund and your public safety fund revenue, as well as other financing sources, which is about $80.2 million. And as you can see in the blue section there, which is your property taxes, that makes up 57% of your total revenue coming in for your general fund and public safety fund. And then we have state sources, which is about 14%. So those two combined together, about 71%, really is coming from those revenue streams that are dependent on the state's economy. So if the state's economy is declining, then we then see a decrease in those property tax values as well. Now this slide here, we've been charting for a few years now, and it's really showing the money from the state shared revenue that is coming to the city. And you can see from 2016 to 2019, we saw some small incremental increases each year. We had a little bit of a dip there in 2020, and then we've maintained an upward climb then for 2021 and 2022. And just as a point of reference, back in 2001, the amount that we were getting was about 8.3 million. It took us 20 years, so not until 2021 did we even come close to that amount. So it's been taking a long time, and we're getting there. In 2021, we did come close to the amount of revenue we were receiving in 2001, with 2022 at 9.5 million. Well, this pie chart now is looking at the general fund and public safety fund expenditure side now. So those combined equal about $78.3 million. And the largest section here is the orange section on the bottom, which is the public safety, which is about 34 million, or 44%. So we can really think of that as every dollar going out of the city, 44 cents is related to public safety. And that includes both police and fire, as well as the safety millage expenditures. Your general fund balances are really broken into a few different buckets. So we have to follow the Governmental Accounting Standards Board rules. So we have, some of it is in the assigned, which is the purple section there, which is 11.1 million. And really what that is it's a fund balance classification that's intended to be used by the city for a specific purpose, but it doesn't require a formal action. And then we have unassigned fund balance at the end of the year of about 35.5 million. So this slide shows the capital investments that the city's been making. And you can see we had an increase there in 2019, remained pretty flat in 2020 and 2021. A lot of that had dealt with the increase in the road millage. So we had those road improvements in 2019 and 2020. And then this year was about 18.6 million of capital outlay expenditures that were added back to the city's capital assets this year. And I do want to point out on this slide that you still can see that we are adding back, the city is adding back capital outlay expenditures and making those improvements greater than what the depreciation is. So the depreciation is about 10.8 million, and the city had added about 18.6 million. Now, this chart here is showing what the capital assets are along with the related accumulated depreciation. So the blue bar shows the total cumulative costs, so year over year, on what the city has dedicated to keeping those capital assets up to date and improved. And then the orange bar is the related accumulated depreciation. So in each of the 5 capital asset categories, you can see the city is still spending more than those related depreciation. And then we have the retirement and the retiree healthcare contribution. So the retiree healthcare contributions for the year was about $264,000, and the pension expense or contributions was about $6.9 million. The OPEB actually has an asset, so the net amount of that is an asset, which is about 108% funded. And then we have the pension is about 74% funded at the end of the fiscal year. So the city continues to pay the annual actuarially determined contribution, which is calculated by the actuaries each year. And in addition to the internal controls and compliance when we're doing those financial statement audits, we're always looking for ways to see if there are any ways that we can help the city improve their efficiencies or effectiveness. And during that, we gain an understanding of the internal controls. So we are happy to report that we did not have any findings or material weaknesses related to the financial statement audit. And we also then look at some of the federal grants too, because the city does receive about $5.5 million in federal grants, and we're required to do a single audit on that. So we did audit the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds this year. And again, we're happy to report we did not have any findings related to those major program that we tested. There are just a couple of things that I want to mention in the governance letter, too, that we're required to report to the council, and that is there's some estimates in the financial statements. There are 4 of them, the fixed assets, so we do estimate the useful lives of the capital assets in here, as well as the assumptions and expectations related to the net pension liability and the OPEB liability, as well as some compensated absences and the amount that's due in a year. We did have one item that was just a management recommendation and comment, and that is related to the conflict of interest, just making sure that that annual form is updated. We have found that at a lot of our municipalities this year with the ARPA funds that were received, that more and more nonprofit agencies were coming and asking for some grants, and we know that a lot of our council members are also giving, and they sit on other nonprofit boards. So we just thought for transparency purposes, that is a comment and recommendation to make sure that conflict of interest form is updated annually. And then my last slide that I have are just some future challenges. I know we mentioned the state shared revenue. It's been a while that it's been climbing back up, and finally last year we did get back to where we were in 2001. The future capital needs is just, a challenge to keep up with the future capital needs, as well as the cost of infrastructure has drastically increased over the last year. And then my last bullet point I had on here was really related to federal and state mandates. So there always just seems to be new rules and regulations coming down with no additional funding to help, the cities comply with all of those requirements. And that's my last slide. I do just want to thank Tom and his team on having everything ready for us. It's a lot of information to get through. They're very well prepared and very quick to respond when we have questions. So I do just want to thank him and his team. It's a pleasure to work with them. Are there any questions that I could answer for you?
Questions, comments? Ms. Knoll?
Sure. I have a question on the fund balance page. Page 7. It looks like in 2022, we have a much larger percentage of unassigned and a lower percentage of assigned
Of a site? Mm-hmm.
as compared to last year.
Yep.
Did a debt retire and that freed up revenue, so the percentage then changed from assigned to unassigned?
No, this is just for your general fund, and I don't have what your assigned amounts were, but let me tell you what we have this year for assigned, and I can get those, or I'm not sure if Tom knows off the top of his head or not, but the amount that we do have assigned is for future expenditures.
Yeah, I understand the entire fund balance went up slightly, but it's just the percentage of assigned to unassigned changed quite drastically, so that's why I'm
Yeah,
wondering the
we
difference.
had had a practice of assigning a certain amount of fund balance for future expenditures, and we tightened up that approach so that we could show what I felt was a more representative number of unassigned dollars. So that was just really just a kind of a cleaning up effort on our part.
Okay. Thanks.
Ms.
Yes.
Boulware?
I want to follow up on Councilman No's question. This unassigned fund balance, is that in any way related to our ARPA funds that we received this year, or that's completely separate?
Funds we received this year, ARPA funds, you mean?
Yes. Mhm.
Yes, ARPA funds do contribute to those funds. They could be assigned if that is something that management chooses to do, or they could be left unassigned. In this case, they're largely unassigned.
They're largely unassigned.
Yes, which is which was the plan that we laid out to the city council. Yes.
So that could account for that higher percentage in the
It accounts for the
unassigned.
higher number overall, and the higher percentage is really just our internal effort to kind of skinny down the assignments to something that we felt was more representative of what we needed to assign at that time.
Any other questions? Mr. Bridges?
Yes, Tom, quick question for you. The city's financial, how would you characterize the city's financial position right now?
Excellent, very good, yes.
Okay, terrific news. Anything to keep you up at night in regards to our financial challenges?
Well, I just think, inflation obviously is wearing away our purchasing power as far as capital goods are concerned. You can see, bids come in higher than anticipated. Hopefully, that's going to get under control. And the other thing I think would be, just the national worry, the national trend about property tax values that we're keeping track of. And it is possible that that could be, a significant problem for us in about 2 years. So we have to track that. We haven't seen it start to hit us yet, but that certainly in the next 2 years could be a significant issue for us.
Do you and your department conduct tabletop exercises in regards to future scenarios regarding our finances going forward?
Sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Does you and your department, do you guys conduct tabletop exercises to look at scenarios in regards to what would happen in certain situations?
Well, nothing as elaborate as the tabletop we do for emergency planning purposes. So there's no projected blood on the streets, as it were. But as far as, yes, we do certainly run through a lot of scenarios. Matt Dingman, our assessor, and I sit down once every couple of weeks and look at the national news as far as property values and look at CoreLogic and see what's coming up and try to come up with different scenarios. Usually we're pretty ahead of the curve, so we know what's coming down the pike, so it's not like there's something that's surprising to us at any given time. It's more just trying to keep it in front of our windshield.
Okay, we have that upcoming study from the space allocation of our facilities that could have a material impact upon things going forward, because we could require some additional drainage of our general fund dollars into supporting capital improvements in those areas there, or whatever the decisions are made in regards to that. So that could have, what's your view of that point?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to give you a preview of that at this point because it's still in formation, but certainly you're right. The information provided by that study will provide us as administration the ability to present to you, a cogent picture of our risks with regards to the things that we've already talked about that I presented to you over the last year, but also the opportunities to make investments in existing capital facilities or new capital facilities, and to be able to match those up to the programming needs that we have, and then to look at the balance of whatever remaining imbalance of expenditures versus revenues in that areas to have a sustainable approach going forward.
My last comment, tonight we're voting on the labor package tonight, right?
The ordinance, yes, correct.
And you had assured the council and the city that we are clearly able to move forward with this with no material impact on the city's finances. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Dr. Massey.
Thank you. And I want to get back to the audit. And Ms. Brevet, I want to thank you very much. Good presentation. I just wanted to follow up on the comment on the suggested conflict of interest forms. Just for clarity, are you saying that we should do annual conflict of interest forms for the council members or for staff at certain levels? Or I'm very familiar with that. My employer has it. Once you hit a certain point, we do them annually and so forth. So just a little clarity around that comment.
Sure, yeah. It would be for the council members and is to be transparent. So, if you're a new council member and you joined council 5 years ago, you may have joined 5 boards between now and then. So to make, the council aware of the different boards that you may sit on, where you would have a beneficial interest on approving a grant. Let's say I sit on a local nonprofit board, and I'm on council, and we did a request to get a grant from council. Obviously, I'm going to vote yes, because that's going to help out the agency that I'm also sitting on a board for. So we would recommend that your, annual meeting, if you have one in January, like I know a lot of places do, that you have a conflict of interest form filled out annually and updated as things can change during the year.
Thank you. Yeah, and it makes total sense. I mean, transparency-wise, yeah, I think that I certainly understand it. Thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, very good. I think we need a motion to accept. Ms. Knoll.
I will make a motion to accept the city's fiscal year 2021-22 audit results.
Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Dr. Massey. I'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, very good. It is accepted. All right, now we move on to correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence they would like to report
That we haven't all
that
received.
we haven't all received? Exactly.
Um,
Ms. Bolwer and then Ms. Newman.
Yes, but I think she's here tonight, and so she'll probably
Yeah, I think
talk
we've
about
all
it at that point.
received. Okay.
But there's a couple that I noticed, my name was not just on it, or mine and Councilman Knowles.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It might have all been just
Okay.
singularly addressed.
Yeah.
Ms. Newman.
I received
Issue, right?
Yeah.
I received email regarding from a resident regarding concerns about the school board, so I just redirected them back to the school board. So just want to be transparent about that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, now we move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine, administrative, or non-controversial by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item may be removed from the consent agenda for consideration. I've asked Mr. Bridges to read the consent agenda tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Item 6, recommend approval of a human resource information system hosted solutions with governmentjobs.com Incorporated in the total amount of $190,532.80 over 3 fiscal years with extensions. Item 7, recommend adoption of a resolution authorizing reimbursement of eligible spongy moth suppression activities under Oakland County Moth Suppression Program. Item 8, recommended approval of award of bid for mowing of city facilities to Green Meadows Landscape for a one-year term in the amount of $68,470,000 with extensions. Item 9, recommend approval of a request for employment under Section 10.01A of the city charter for a senior division van driver. Item 10, recommend approval of canceling the December 26, 2022 City Council regular session meeting. And item 11, recommend approval of City Council study session meeting minutes of November 14, 2022. Item 12, recommend approval of City Council regular session meeting minutes of November 14, 2022.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion? Dr. Massey.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I would move approval of items 6 through 10 as read by Mr. Bridges.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Massey, a second by Ms. Bulaware. All those in favor of items 6 through 10?
Mayor Pro Tem's a
I'm sorry,
roll call.
roll
vote.
call.
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Council members Newland? Yes. Bolaware?
Yes.
Massey?
Yes.
Knoll?
Yes.
Bridges?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Bruce.
Yes. Thank you. Now for items 11 and 12, is there a motion? Dr. Massey.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would move items 11 and 12 be approved as read by Mr. Bridges.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Ms. Bulaware. This is a roll call vote again.
Council members Bolaware?
Yes.
Massey?
Yes.
Knoll? Same. Bridges?
Yes.
Newland? Yes. And Mayor Pro Tem Bruce.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, now we move on to public questions and comments. You have, anybody can come forward and say whatever they would like for up to 5 minutes. If you are requesting to speak on any agenda item, please fill out a blue slip and turn that into the clerk. Otherwise, you do not need a blue slip. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Linda Solomon. I'm a resident of Farmington Hills. I want to thank the City Council and public officials for giving me the opportunity to share what happened to my family over the Thanksgiving holiday. On Tuesday at 4 o'clock, there was a knock at my door, and one of the city engineers was there to tell me that we would have no access to my home beginning at 7:30 a.m. on Wednesday. I will describe to you what no access is. They had built a large, high curb that extended, and I measured it, 11 inches at the end of my driveway. On either side of my driveway, there is dense woods. On either side of this cement barrier, the Farmington Hills city engineers and the crews they oversee left broken rock, which I brought. This is what they left for me to try to walk over to get to my car. Broken rock with nails, old pipe. The nails, I had picked up, I think, 15 of these nails within 5 minutes when Councilman Bridges was gracious enough to come to my home. So this barrier made it impossible for me to safely reach my car. I called the Farmington Hills Fire Department. I called the Farmington Hills Police Department. The residents of Farmington Hills, you should be aware, they told me they could not cross that barrier. In case of emergency, they would have to park at the end of my driveway, which is 350 feet from my home, and run. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a 94-year-old mother who uses a walker and a wheelchair. She was not able to leave our home because of what the Farmington Hills engineers and their crews did to my home over Thanksgiving. Contrary to emails that were sent, we did not receive notice. The only notice we received was on November 4th that said, possibly for a few hours, you may not have access to your home. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a journalist, so you need to know the facts. We were never told that we would not have access for 5 to 7 days. I have had EMS at my home, sadly, this year due to my mother's health. I could not possibly have a safe home without access, and they left me like that. I had to physically crawl over that barricade to get to my car. I'm not young. If anything happened to me, I am the caregiver for my mother. I had to crawl over that barricade. This road work should never have started. I begged Engineer Cabrero, wait until spring. No, I attended meetings in this room. I am a taxpayer. No one listened to me. They started this road work knowing everything depends upon weather. They started this road work in late September. I have documented every day they never showed up to work. I sent emails on Wednesday to many people in this room, pleading with them for help. I couldn't get out of my house on Thanksgiving. Not one person answered me.
Ms. Solomon, you have 30 seconds left.
Ladies and gentlemen, they left my family unsafe until Councilman Bridges had taken time from his holiday to come see my nightmare. And he called the city manager, who then decided to give me temporary access. It's temporary, and you need to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Are we going to have other people in public comment?
In case
And then
somebody
have the
wants
city
to-
manager?
Okay. I'll move on. Now, there's another blue slip, but we don't need it from Tanish Agarwal.
Hi, my name is Tanish Agarwal. I also live on the same same street as Linda Solomon. Around November 10th, I had a similar issue with the big rock chunks. So they said that they were going to be providing golf carts, sorry, due to the inaccessibility that would be there, which was perfectly fine. I had parked my car a couple houses before when I came back from college, knowing farewell that there would be a golf cart. They had big chunks like she just showed. I have a very low car, so I said I can leave my car there, and they said that they had a golf cart in the email. When I asked the crew, there was no golf cart. They said, don't worry, bring it on. My car ended up getting stuck on the rocks. The bottom of my car, all the carpet liner and all of that was ripped up. When I go on the road, you can hear it, so I ended up having to cut it all up. And it's ridiculous how all of that has impacted me, and there's no solution for that. And we were never notified about any of that stuff, so yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Good evening.
Good evening, Council, to the Mayor Pro Tem. I don't know what to say. Linda Solomon, the name speaks for itself. And anybody that's lived in Michigan any amount of time, you would have to know the name Linda Solomon. I did want to say that. And just fix it. Do something to make them whole. You know, I saw something on CNN today that just literally brought tears to my eyes. And it was about a bad cop that drove from Virginia to California that killed 2 grandparents and a mother of a teenager that he was catfishing on the internet. I had no idea what catfish or catfishing meant until they did this story. Myself, my husband, who's referred to as the Silver Fox, and other advocates throughout the southeastern Michigan area, we have been trying for years to get a national registry for bad cops. This cop was able to work for one jurisdiction and one law enforcement agency, and then went to the state police. Now, how do you have someone that takes an oath to protect and serve the community that he works in, to catfish and go all the way to California, kill 2 grandparents and a mother of a teenager that he was basically stalking? I need my city that I pay taxes in. I've never paid my taxes late. In fact, I pay them early, but that's not an excuse or a reason. I would like my city to see what you can do to help us get this national registry for bad cops. If a cop has been reprimanded or fired for anything that's inappropriate, that bad cop's name should be added to a national registry so they can't go someplace else and get a job. I have said for a long time, a community is only as strong as its public safety, so we know that public safety matters everywhere. But do we want 1 or 2 bad apples to destroy the bunch? So I don't know what you can do, but I'm asking you if it takes an ordinance locally to get it started, to move up to the county level, to the state level, and eventually the national level. I want my city that I pay for, taxes, that I have approved public safety millages, because I believe in public safety, to help us with this initiative. We have got to stop these officers, and we know that it's a stressful job. I'm trying to fight back the tears. We know that being a police officer right now is very stressful. We know that suicide is high among some police officers. Those are the officers that we want our tax dollars and our monies and our time and effort to go towards. But these bad cops, we got to weed them out. It is unacceptable for what this cop did. And his age and fishing a teenager, something is wrong with you when you drive all the way across the map with the intent to kill. And that was his intent. So I know that this is not Farmington Hills where this happened. Let me make that very clear.
30 seconds.
But I'm talking about, can my city help me and others to get this initiative started? And if you could do that, it would be greatly appreciated. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comments and bring it back to council member comments and announcements. Ms. Knoll, and then Mr. Bridges.
Well, traditionally, for public comment, we let the public comment, and we don't necessarily get into any sort of responses with the public. But the comments and concerns by Ms. Solomon, I think it would be appropriate to talk about that. And I think maybe a good way to start is to either give it over to the city manager or maybe the director of our Department of Public Services, Ms. Mondora. You know, I'd like to, there were a lot of concerns raised, the police and fire access, construction materials, I wrote down the November 4th email, the barrier, when the project started, why it started in September, golf carts, communication. So those are some of the issues. So if you want to talk about that, and maybe we can have some dialogue. I think it's important that we're all on the same page here, because I've received emails from a variety of people. I've received phone calls. I did go out to the site. I didn't talk to the homeowner, but I was out there to take a look at it. So I'd like to make sure we're all on the same page and have an open dialogue.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So first of all, I would just like to acknowledge Mrs. Solomon. She and I did have a conversation on Friday. And Mrs. Solomon and to the other residents on Rock Ridge, I want to extend my sincerest apology for the inconvenience that you all experienced during especially the holiday weekend. And Mrs. Solomon, especially to you and your family for not having the ability to have access, certainly during the Thanksgiving holiday. And of course, I have an elderly mother too. I know how near and dear they are, full-time care. I understand the situation. But it's a little more complicated than that. And so I appreciate Councilwoman Knoll giving us an opportunity and giving our Public Services Director an opportunity to perhaps lay out some of the real considerations that were taken when the decision was made to limit access to your driveway. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to Director Mondora. Karen, thank you for your input. I appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. My name is Karen Mondora. I am the Director of Public Services. Public Services includes the Engineering Division. So I echo what City Manager Gary Mekchin has indicated, that we regret the incident that occurred over the holiday weekend regarding the road construction near the Solomon's home. I also want to recognize that construction projects are messy, noisy, and wildly inconvenient to residents. It's just unfortunately a fact of life when it comes to construction. This particular year has been very challenging for the construction industry. It's been plagued with supply chain issues, labor shortages, and weather concerns. All of these factors have impacted the construction schedules for many of the city's projects, including Rock Ridge and including MDOT projects, road commission projects. We're not unique in that situation. Rock Ridge is a long dead-end cul-de-sac. It's got some history with it with regards to poor drainage. This reconstruction plan for the roadway will address some of those drainage concerns. The barricade referenced by Ms. Solomon is actually a 2-foot wide mountable curb that when the project is said and done will allow for smooth access over the driveway from the roadway. This is an important aspect of the project's design. In mid-November, we experienced a cold snap and snow accumulations that caused this particular curb's installation to be rescheduled. The concrete requires cure time of approximately 7 days to harden. These and other factors ultimately necessitated this disruption to their access to their driveway. We were able to, we confirmed earlier this week that the Solomons would be able to park one of their vehicles in the road and one in their driveway. Given that information, we didn't anticipate the need for a golf cart. As part of our process, we work in partnership with the fire and police department during each construction project. In the event of an emergency, they're trained to get to those in need as quickly as possible. We do definitely want to express our sincere apology to the Solomons for the inconvenience that this project has caused. I'm happy to continue the conversation out in the hallway with anyone who has additional concerns, or if council has any other questions for me.
Questions? Okay.
I do have a comment. Yes, yes. It's not directed necessarily at you, Karen, just in general. I've noticed that over the past couple, even the last council session that we had, there was a resident who came in because he had either wrote a letter or made a phone call. He did not get a response to his question. He didn't know what was going on until the project was nearly complete or completed, the resident last time.
So can I give a couple of some information on the communication tools that we utilize?
Yes, and I guess that's where I'm going. It seems like there is somehow our communications need to be improved. Because, you know, what you're saying, it makes, it's logical, it's rational. But I think for Ms. Solomon, not knowing all those details from what she had mentioned to me in an email is that, you know, she had called, she wasn't getting any responses to her telephone calls. So I'm going to have a general statement. I think that I'd like to see how do we handle emergency communications and general communications. When someone questioned or, you know, sent a letter to the city, I guess this is for you, Mr. Metchin, or a call, you know, what is our criteria for a response? Do we respond within a certain length of time? Is there a time period? If someone writes a letter, do they get a letter back? Answering their questions and concerns. In an emergency situation like this, which, you know, Thanksgiving and there's no one around, what is the emergency procedure for that? Because this is, you know, for many people, including, I'm sure most of us, that's a very important time of the year, Thanksgiving. That's when we get with our families, especially this in the pandemic time, and that's really important. When you can't do that, and I can only imagine the frustration she must have felt, you know, not getting answers to her questions or anyone responding to her appeals for help. So I guess the basic thing I like to see is what is our communication plan? How do we address these communications that come in? Because so many times like residents come before council and they're upset because they didn't receive a reply to something. their question, you know, they make a telephone call, no one calls back. Me, myself, I've called in to a department, didn't hear anything, didn't call back. I had to go and research and find out, you know, why I did not get the call back. But I think that's very important what our communications plans are for these situations, both emergency and non-emergency. Is there criteria that when someone calls into the city that we owe them a response within, I don't know, 24, 48 hours? What's the emergency procedures? In a case like this where, you know, we're all gone, there's no one here to help, what is the situation? Because there seems to be, I'm seeing a trend and residents contacting us and not getting a response or a timely response.
Well,
So I guess that's for you, Mr. Metchin. Yeah.
so Councilwoman Boulware, if you are trying to contact a department head to get information out of the department and you do not get a responder, it doesn't come from the department head through me out to council or however that may be, I'd like to know that. So if you could share more information, I'd like to
Yeah,
learn more
I did
about that
share
maybe
that
later.
with Mr. Valentine because you were on vacation when this happened, and he did respond, and I did get an answer. I knew what was going on, but it was after the fact, and no one had responded directly to me. And I know that there's a Joseph Williams, who's the homeowners association of my subdivision, who constantly complains that he calls in and, just hard to get in contact with people. So I just wanted to know, what is our process? What is our communications procedure? Because it seems like many of the things, negative things that we experience is because it's a lack of effective communications. It could be on the website, as you mentioned, you can go on the website, you can look to see where we are with certain projects. But many of us don't go on the website to look for that. We call into whatever number we're looking to discuss, and we expect for someone to give us an answer at some times. So that's my general concern and comment.
Mr. Bridges?
Yes, I concur with the comments made by Councilmember Boulware. We've had issues of communication with the residents, so we can look at that and see how we can improve our communication with our residents regarding road construction work or zoning issues or meetings that it should be made aware of. We should look at that because this situation with Mrs. Solomon could have been avoided if the contractor had been sensitive to recognize the fact there was no access for the resident to get out of her resident with that vehicle. And I think, because of the fact that there was peat stone or gravel outside of her driveway there that was placed there, and it was pretty clear to me that could have been used to build that bridge to allow for in and out access for her for a vehicle, and it was not done. And the fact that the contractor left hazardous materials on the ground that could injure pedestrians walking by or could damage vehicles. There were a number of sharp objects that Mr. Solomon brought to council tonight that I observed myself there, that it was, contractor was somewhat sloppy in their work, and sloppy in their communication. And I would like for us to look at what we can do to improve that situation to ensure the contractor is representing the city in its best interest. Because in this case, the contractor did not represent the city in its best interest. And so I'd like for us to take a look at that as well.
Ms. Knoll.
Yeah, I have a question. As I mentioned, I went out to the site. I got out of my car. I walked around. I took lots of photos. I obviously noticed the curb, the mountable curb. It's as was described. It's 2 feet wide. I don't know what the grade on it. It's a curb. You can drive on it. It's, I don't know, go down to Livonia. That's basically how they build their whole city. And I know we have them here in Farmington Hills too. We have a variety of different types of curbs here. We have your 90-degree, like 6-inch curb, but we also have mountable curbs. They're all, MDOT approved types of curbs. And I know we use both in our construction methods. But obviously, I saw the curb there, and I call it an apron because it's what's going to connect the street. Once the concrete is poured, it will be poured at the same level as this mountable curb, and then the driveway butts up to the mountable curb. So I'm just describing it basically for the people in the audience so they know what it looks like, since we don't have photos of it. But now I have my question. I do see our police chief here. And one of the items that was raised that concerned me was that if there was an emergency, that they would park and they'd have to run. And I know that our police vehicles can mount a variety of different types of terrain. So I would, if our police chief could answer this question, could come up here and explain to all of us, in case of an emergency, how would the situation have been addressed as far as our police vehicles getting over the, like I said, from the base. The rock material is the base of the roadway, and there is obviously a gap because the concrete hasn't been poured yet. So the police vehicles would be on the rock, the base. It's called a roadway base, a gravel rock base, and then they'd have to go over the mountable curb into the driveway. So can the police chief talk a little bit about whether that would be a problem? I mean, that obviously would be a concern if the police or fire had to basically get out and run. So could we address that? Because obviously the most important thing here is not, some coffee cups that the construction crew, threw out when they were having a coffee break. I mean, obviously that will all be cleaned up. The city makes sure that our construction and our contractors clean up the site when it's all done. We've all had construction done at our house or had our roads repaired, and we know it can be messy, and it's unfortunate, but we know that happens. The city will make sure it gets cleaned up. But to me, the most important thing is the health, safety, and welfare, and that involves public safety. That's the most critical point. So could you talk a little bit about that and reassure Ms. Solomon as well as the council in this community that whether when we have road construction projects and when curbs are poured and you're not supposed to drive over them for 5 days or so forth, and that's why even with the gravel, they couldn't have probably done that immediately because you're not supposed to drive over it immediately. But in the amount of a critical necessity, an accident, that the police would say, whatever, I'll drive over it and we can replace the concrete later. That's not as important as saving a life. So can you talk to us about that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. As with everything we respond to, we assess the situation as we approach it. Depending on the life safety concerns that were presented at the time, we would assess the situation and we would use our equipment appropriately. If we had to damage a car to get to a life safety situation, the car comes secondary to a life. We would damage that car. We would damage that curb. We would we are better at damaging things to get to where we are than we are not damaging them because we are focused primarily on the life safety. 300 yards is not an issue for us. Some of us don't look like we're in the best shape, but we can clearly traverse 300 feet pretty easily. We train to do that. If it was a situation where we needed to get that car closer, we would deploy that vehicle in that sense to get it up to as close to the house as possible. We work very closely with our fire department. In situations where the fire department would say they would need to get that vehicle. I don't want to speak for our fire department, but they are also trained in getting vehicles to as close as possible so they could deploy their life-saving equipment in as close as possible. If there was a situation where that equipment needed to be carried, we work very closely. We co-respond to the vast majority of medical incidents in the Farmington Hills area. We would be there typically first. And if we needed to help them carry their equipment or help carry a gurney or backboard, we would do so.
Okay. Thank you. I just, again, want to be sure that this community knows that our police will gladly damage a vehicle if it means saving someone's life, even if they've got to, take it through divots and so forth.
It wouldn't be the first time wouldn't be the first time, ma'am.
For your vehicles, most of your patrol vehicles are pretty beefy SUVs.
They're all either medium SUVs or full-size SUVs.
So those things can traverse some pretty rocky, rough, uneven ground.
They're all all-wheel drive.
and they can go, you go off-road for a certain, you know, whatever the requirement is.
Unfortunately, we have to go off-road quite a bit.
Right, so I think if you had to cross over, you know, even a 3, 4, 5-inch curb, your vehicles would be able to get over that.
Or divot,
fairly,
because
yeah.
there was
That
a
is
divot, obviously. So-
That is not a barrier that would stop our response in any way, shape, or form. And the supervisor that was out after the fact said that there would be no problem going and accessing in an emergency response. But we're not going to go out of our way for a non-emergency response to damage something that the city has invested time and effort in constructing. We would frown upon that.
Is there any other comments for the chief or Ms. Mondor? Mr. Bridges?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your response regarding the police ability to get to the home. But the potential use or need for a medical situation is not on your jurisdiction, would be the fire department, is that correct? I mean, they would.
We are first responders and we respond
But
with
the point
them.
is that more than likely, if there's a medical need there, a fire truck would have been called to the scene. And I would like to see why they're not here to answer that particular question. Because you're answering from a public safety standpoint, we appreciate that. But the more likelihood will be a fire vehicle for medical needs. She has a 94-year-old mother that obviously challenges for 94 with asthmatic conditions. So the appropriate personnel would have been the fire department, would have been here to discuss that particular point regarding access for medical reasons. I understand your point regarding law enforcement, but
Mr. Bridges, have you actually looked at a fire rescue vehicle? They're bigger than the police vehicles. They would have no problem with that. So if you've seen them, then you have to agree with that statement.
I'm saying that the fire department should have been here representing the
They're
situation.
first responders, though.
I
not
understand
fire.
that, but it would have been more appropriate for the fire department to be here because they're the one going to respond to a medical emergency.
Actually, well, they are.
Well, this is public comment and
Everybody
council
go through the
comment.
chair. Let's everybody just go through the chair and one at a time, please.
So this is public comment, and it isn't a public hearing on public safety. You've been around this council long enough to know that these vehicles can get where they need to go, so don't trying to actually question and look for specific responses. You know the answer to it. I know you do.
The appropriate personnel would have been the fire department, we'd be questioned about.
But
not
it
the
wasn't, it's not a council issue, so there's no reason for them to have planned to be here. I would actually like to ask the chief while you're up, because the question was brought up on officers that are let go from one department. Is there a list? And to my knowledge, there in fact is it may not be a full national registry as was requested, but I know there is some type of list that officers that have problems behaviorally and are let go for that purpose. There is a list that prohibits them from being hired in other places. And could you comment on that while you're up?
In the state of Michigan, we are licensed by MCOLS, the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards. There is a reporting system when we suspend an officer, when we discipline an officer, we need to report that to them. So there's a ongoing registry. In Michigan, it's called Public Act 128. It is a duty for a police officer, when they apply, they have to sign a form that absolves the police department from any legal recourse, because back in the day, people were afraid to tell the truth on these officers because of the reason they got fired for fear of lawsuit. But that PA 128 absolved us of that, and then it not only absolves us of that liability, it requires the police department to reveal to that new agency any reasons why that officer was separated. There's a process for the officer to appeal it and to counter with a letter of response to why they were terminated. But that is in place in Michigan, and it's a public act that can be traced. I can't speak nationally, but in the state of Michigan it is. We do comply with that. But more importantly, it's the quality of our process and the thoroughness of our background checks. The two most critical points when a police officer or public safety individual is hired is the psychological exam and the background investigation. And even well before the background investigation, we have eliminated individuals that applied to our agency because of the thoroughness of our application process and our procedures. One of those individuals was Menendez. That individual that was fired, he was quote-unquote RoboCop from Detroit. He was fired from there and then I believe hired by Inkster, and then had an incident with the Inkster Police Department where he beat an individual and brutalized that individual, causing a significant multi-million-dollar lawsuit. That individual applied with the Farmington Hills Police Department. I interviewed him and we rejected him.
Good.
Excellent.
Any other questions for
Any
the
other
council?
questions for- Okay, hold on, Mrs. Sullivan. Any other questions for Ms. Mondora or the chief?
I've got a question.
Ms. Newland?
So I apologize. I was aware of the situation on Friday when I received the email from Gary. So I was not on the original emails. So I did not, so I failed to understand the whole, I call it human component of this issue. So it is now Monday. Has there been outreach to the contractor of what the situation is right now in front of her home?
Yes, the contractor was out there on Saturday, and he's out there today. We have our on-site construction inspector out there with him as well.
Okay, Ms. Knoll?
So I have a question about construction projects. You mentioned there's a labor shortage. You mentioned there's a cement shortage right now, and that has caused chaotic timing in construction in general. So, and this is the reason I bring this up is because we get asked this question a lot. Whenever we have a construction project, this really doesn't have to do specifically with this road. It's general, in general. We've been going through this for, I'd say, the past 5 years, ever since probably COVID, and there's been, well, maybe not quite 5 years, but there's been labor shortages and other issues. And people will say, why is the contractor not there today? They were there yesterday, now they're not there today. The next day they may show up and they're only there for 3 hours and then they leave. Then they're not there again the next day. Then they're there the next day, maybe a full day. So our residents often assume that these people are lazy, they're not working, their taxpayer dollars are going to these people to just sit around on the job. And I do happen to know that many of these contractors, we bid our projects back in February, March. When these contractors, and by the way, there's not many of them in the state of Michigan because many of them left when we had the Great Recession, and and then on top of it, a labor shortage brought on by COVID. We've got so many issues going on, but because they bid on multiple projects, what ends up happening is you've got a construction window of 4 or 5 months in Michigan. They will maybe go and work in Farmington Hills one day, then while cement is curing, or maybe they're waiting on a pipe because there's a shortage of piping and they got to wait for that pipe to get in. Then they'll maybe go work on a project in Detroit or Rochester Hills or Troy or some other city that's got a construction problem that they also won the bid on, because they just don't do one project. They do multiple projects throughout all of Southeast Michigan, and the way their schedule works is they kind of periodically show up at one, then they go to the other. And there's a lot of downtime in construction projects because of waiting on supplies, waiting for concrete to cure, waiting for, the truck to show up with the concrete, or even to show up with the asphalt because it's on another job site and it can't get there until the next day. So, I probably answered part of the question myself, but I think it's important to talk about that because we don't want our residents to think that these contractors are lazy and are just hosing them. And so, I know learning about this road construction isn't exactly sexy and fun, but I do think it's important to understand that. And again, I'm not specifically talking about this one project. I'm talking about all of our road construction projects in Michigan. Well, specifically Farmington Hills for tonight. So can you maybe explain that?
Yes,
Whatever I missed
you're
out.
absolutely correct. So the prime contractor has a number of subcontractors.
General contractor.
General contractor.
Has
prime.
subcontractors.
Some of them self-perform the majority of the work. Some of them have a specific, like an underground contractor. They come in and install the storm sewer pipe. And they'll have a separate contractor for driveways or curbs, the concrete work, the flat work. the sidewalks, a separate landscape company, a separate company that brings in the materials, that trucks in the materials. And they do the heavy operation with the equipment on site. So it's all, you know, a choreographed dance, so to speak, to get everybody in at the right time. And if for some reason one component of the project is delayed, you know, those subs are lined up on other projects, as you mentioned, either in the city or in Southeast Michigan, and they have to get them back on their dance card, so to speak, to get that work completed. We've seen issues with material delivery. The contractor orders 1,800 yards of aggregate stone to put in the base, and only 600 shows up through no fault of their own. It's just a function of driver availability, workers at the quarry, asphalt plants. We're down to 3 plants in Southeast Michigan now because of environmental regulation. Nobody wants to open up another asphalt supply plant. And at this time of year, everybody is really, you know, working feverishly to get their projects completed before the snow flies and the asphalt production ceases for the year.
Thanks for the explanation.
Hopefully that.
Just wanted to end it, Karen, I just want to say thank you for, Adora, being forthright with your presentation. But I'd like for you to also balance the interest of the taxpayers who pays for the work in these neighborhoods, right? Taxpayers' dollars is the funding mechanism for all this road work to be done. And I don't want, and I know I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm just saying that we got to make sure that we keep that in mind, that taxpayers are paying the bills. The contractor work for the city of Farmington Hills. We hire them to do the work. And so we got to make sure we're managing them properly. They have the proper expectations that we want for our residents and our community in regards to how our dollars to be spent and make sure that they're not adding to a problem in our city. So I want to make that comment about that as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Ms. Bosbolova?
Yes. Thank you. You know, that explanation is great. And I think that something need to be put on our website or when we send communications out to the residents about construction in general, what you just said, you know.
Right.
When you see people there one day and not the next, it's not because they're sloughing off or being lazy. It's because there's some other information that you may not be aware of they're dealing with. And I think the more information that we give people, the more their understanding of what it is. You know, we know because we're so close to it, but the average person does not know that. And it would be great if we can put that on our website, like, you know, police response and doing a construction zone or fire, you know, safety, doing those types of things so that people can actually reference those and take a look at them.
Or the presentation on how construction works at the general information meeting that you have. If they want to stick around for it.
If they show up in the first place.
Yeah, if they show up and want to stick around, but
All right.
just.
Any other
Sorry.
comments or questions for Ms. Mondora? I think we've covered pretty much everything. All right, Ms. Solomon, we don't usually allow a back and forth in public comments. This is a little bit unusual situation because there's been so much. I'll give you another minute to kind of sum up and just do any kind of
To
other.
address Councilman Massey, we did have the fire department at our home, and you can check, it's all on record. Chief Battalion Hatch did say, unfortunately, their vehicles could not cross that barrier. It's all recorded. And he did say, we will get a stretcher at the end of the driveway and run to keep anyone in this home safe in case of a medical emergency.
I spent 10 years as a paramedic, so with all due respect, we will get to where we need to go, and those vehicles can get there. They're not going to choose to do that unless there is an absolute need. So I'm not speaking from a point of theoretical, I'm speaking of a point of practicality. And by the way, in all of did you get a response from me?
I didn't email you.
I know you didn't email me,
Yeah.
but I was at your house anyway and saw the issue, took a look at it. I don't know why it was stated that you tried to contact all of us and got no
I
responses.
didn't say all of you. I said,
Your Nextdoor.com did. So maybe give us all a chance. That's what
I tried on Wednesday. No one answered me, Councilman.
You got me there. I was there.
You
So-
were there on Saturday, after there was a temporary access.
I was actually there Thursday night.
Oh, Thursday.
Yep.
You didn't call me.
I don't have your phone number.
Other,
So I'm not going to get in a back and forth with you. The issue is, we are all interested.
thank you.
It's
I
sad
appreciate
when
it.
somebody has a challenge like that.
Appreciate that.
And there are reasons for it, but putting out information that's inaccurate, like saying you contacted all of us and didn't get a response.
didn't.
And Mr. Bridges responded, Ms. Knoll responded. Did you, I don't think you did.
No.
Because you had,
But with
you
all-
did by email. Right.
I'm not going
So-
to,
Well, it's really irrelevant.
it
It's
is irrelevant
thank you.
because I
It's
did not,
a communicate, well, no, all this discussion up here is on communication. So I'm going to respond to the fact that the communication has to be accurate
it was.
both ways. And I never received it. I had to get the information differently through.
I'm happy to
Nextdoor.
read the next door comment if you'd like, so we can
I
clarify.
read all, I took a look at 164 of them. So, and this was there was some misinformation in there. I'm not going to debate it, but information has to go both ways. It has
I'm
to
a
be accurate.
taxpayer, and if my safety is jeopardized, I would hope that you would be concerned.
Well, we are concerned, and you've already gotten an answer to that. We could, if
Well, I
your safety is paramount in
I
this
can
city.
only, I am a board director of the Farmington Hills Police and Fire Benevolent League. If a fire chief tells me he cannot cross that barrier, I have to respect and trust what he said to me.
And I will, and I understand that, and I agree with that, but I will say, comments, when in context, you have to look at the conversation and the communication as a whole. That's part of the problem, and it is a contextual type of situation. So I'm giving you factual information
I am too.
from experience, and the context is what it is.
I
So,
trust what the
I am
fire
done,
chief said
and
to you.
And you, by the way, you've been given an opportunity to stand back up.
you.
Nobody else gets.
I'm gonna wrap this up because we've been going on quite a long time with this, but it's an important issue. So, Ms. Solomon, I haven't had my chance to make my comments yet. First off, I hope your mom's doing okay and that your family's doing well. This is an unfortunate situation for everybody on Rock Ridge, and certainly through the holiday season. It's not what anybody wanted. These road projects are very disruptive, but they don't typically go on this late in the year. So because of supply chain issues and a lot of other factors, because of what's left over from the pandemic, we're dealing with some of these things and a lot later than we normally do. So I think everybody's very sorry that this happened to everybody on Rock Ridge. And I can assure you that there's been a tremendous amount of conversation that has happened because of it. And I think there's going to be a lot more conversation that happens because of it, because we do want to listen to people. We want to learn from you and everybody else what goes right and what doesn't go well, so that we can improve as a city to make sure we're delivering the best public services that we can to all the residents, all the taxpayers, and we're all taxpayers too. And we want to make sure our dollars are spent appropriately and efficiently so that these projects get done well. We have great engineers and public servants in this city that these road projects turn out beautiful when they're done. And I think when it's done, I think everybody on Rock Ridge will be very, very happy with the result. It just happened to come at a bad time. There might have been some miscommunication here. I wasn't there, so I'm just hoping that we can figure out what went wrong, if anything did go wrong, and then how we can improve this situation overall. So that even on this project as it goes forward and all the future projects, they're done in a very efficient manner and we don't run into some of these same issues. Obviously, they have to deal with contractors and they don't have full control over the contractors either, so sometimes that can be very difficult in trying to chase them down and make sure they're doing the correct thing. It's a big job. So again, I think we all feel very bad for what happened. We are listening, and we are trying to make sure that we go forward and figure this out and make sure that we do this project and everyone going forward even better, okay? So we certainly thank you for coming out, everybody from Rock Ridge, and for your comments tonight, okay? Any other public comments and questions? Okay, I will turn it, oh, this is council member comments, I'm sorry. We're in council member comments, so I'm going to turn it over to the city manager for the city manager
Well,
update.
no, I have some
Oh,
council
Ms.
member
Bowler, I'm sorry.
comments.
Ms. Bowler, I thought
Yes.
we were done.
Yes. Recently, Dr. Randy Bruce and Councilman Knowles and I had the opportunity to attend the National League of Cities City Summit in Kansas City, Missouri, where we were able to connect and have several dialogue with municipal officials from across the country. And I think we can all say, without doubt, it was a valuable experience. And one of the things that I took away from that is that there are several, I mean, every session they were saying how many grants are available to help cities like ours and other cities as long as we apply for these grants. So when I came back, I did send to our city manager, Gary Metchin. They were having what they call a boot camp grant program, which is absolutely free to our city to teach us and really about how to apply for these grants, what we need to do, what assistance they can provide us for these grant opportunities. So I thought that was, in addition to all the other things that were valuable. And I had an opportunity, I'm now on the near, I think, suburban cities, a council in which we have a chance, an opportunity to be an advocate for our city with the national, with the federal government. So I thought that was very good. Unfortunately, while I was there, the last day, there was a uneven sidewalk and I fell and injured my shoulder and my knee. And I'd like to say, without Councilman Newland, I don't know what I would have done to get back home. You know, she really, the nurse that she is, she was able to do some first aid, you know, take care of my luggage, get me back to my house until I was able to get to the emergency room here in Michigan. And this all happened so quickly. We know that she and I, we have a tendency to shop whenever we're somewhere, and she was dragging me along with her. And so that's when the incident happened. But she got me back safely, and I could thank her so much for that, because I keep telling her I don't know what would have happened if she had not been with me. So thank you, Ms. Newland, for that. Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other council members? Yes, Ms. Newland.
So, thank you, Jackie, for your kind words. I would take care, you are my friend.
Yeah.
So I would, of course, I aid and help, and I was very honored to be able to help you. So if we got injured on whatever escapade happened, so it happens. So again, I want to echo again how I want to thank the city for being supportive of allowing us to rejoin the NLC, for all the opportunities. It's 3-4 days of lectures, meetings, learning about everything from infrastructure to public safety to housing to sewers. I mean, it's everything. Of course, we are joined on many different groups, and I'm now a new proud member of joining the LGBTQIA group as a mom and advocate. I attended my first meeting when we first rejoined the NLC back in March, and now I'm a proud member. I think, and I decided this before the incidents in Colorado Springs when we were at conference, I think as advocates and also as elected officials, we need to have a voice to support so that the tragedy does not happen again as it happened in Colorado Springs. So I want to thank again that group and allowing me to join.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, that brings us to the end of council member comments and announcements. So we are going to take a brief 5-minute break, and we will be back. Okay, we are back in session after our short break. The next item on our agenda will be the city manager update.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our annual holiday light ceremony will be held here at the City Hall on Tuesday, December 6th at 6:30 PM. Hope everybody can make that. Yard waste pickup, it's again, this time of the year, so yard waste pickup ends this year on your regularly scheduled pickup day, the week of December 12th to December 16th, 2022. Just want to remind council that the joint meeting with the City of Farmington and the Farmington Public Schools is scheduled for 6 PM on January 25th at the Maxfield Training Center. And last but not least, the Recycling Authority is holding a senior shredding day on Tuesday, December 13th from 10 a.m. To 12 p.m. at the Caustic Center parking lot. So residents can bring up to 4 paper grocery bags of documents to shred. No boxes, magazines, or junk mail or trash, please. Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, next item under new business, number 4, consideration of an appeal of a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request dated September 26, 2022. And I think Pam is going to lead us off. Ms. Smith?
Yes, thank you. This is, before council, is the appeal to a Freedom of Information Act request or request for records from the city clerk's office. The records requested relate to an Oakland County Circuit Court matter that I believe dates back to at least 2016, if not 2013, I think, when I was looking at documents. And most of those, which would be, if we had them, would have been held with our city attorney's office. We work closely with our city attorney's office. And in our response, we did indicate that we were granting some of the records in part. The portions that were being denied were due to the fact that they either did not exist or they were exempt under attorney-client privileged information. I do want to note that we responded in that way, and we sent that response to Mr. Constant, and indicated as typically there was a fee involved with the efforts of researching the information, redacting, and providing that. We did receive this appeal prior to Mr. Constant receiving the documents or paying for those. He did indicate that knowing, based on our letter, that the information was only going to be granted in part and that we weren't releasing some of the information based on the exemptions and that some of it would be redacted, that is his appeal. He feels he is entitled to full disclosure of all documents.
Mr. Young.
Good evening, everybody. It's my understanding Mr. Constant is not here. We provided an opinion regarding this. And I think the last matter that Clerk Smith talked about is very important. We didn't give anything to this individual. He just jumped basically and appealed the basis of the denial. And ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about this before. It's very clear. He's seeking attorney-client information. There's no basis to give that. None of the reasons he provides supports the reason to waive that privilege. And I would just say I would advise the city council to affirm the decision of the clerk and withhold the information that's being sought. And please, again, I will make it very clear. We did not deny this altogether. There was information that would have been provided that was not exempt. He did not pay, nor has he provided any indication that he's willing to accept that. So this is solely as to the precise issue of whether or not to provide the attorney-client privilege. I know that he has a supplemental document in there that talks about his basis for justifying that. There's nothing in there that has legal merit to justify that. So I would advise the council to affirm that decision and not disclose any exempt material to Mr. Constant.
Thank you. Mr. Jopik.
Just to supplement very briefly, and as part of the record, this the information that's requested dates back, I think, 6 years to a lawsuit that was filed by Mr. Constant that included the city, some city employees as defendants in that case, and it was attorney-client communication and information and work product relating to that litigation that he's asking for. And the case was dismissed, and 6 years later comes the time when he asks for that information to be disclosed despite the attorney-client nature of that communication.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
A motion.
Dr. Massey.
Item, motion?
Mayor Pro Tem Bruce, we did have somebody that wanted to speak
Oh,
on
that's,
the issue.
you're right, thank you. Ms. Geek, come on up and you have 5 minutes.
I just, excuse me, to the council, I just wanted to compliment our city clerk, Miss Pamela Smith, the way she goes about doing things for the city of Farmington Hills. I think most of us that have any kind of advocacy or political savvy that do a lot of FOIAs, which is Freedom of Information Act requests, we know that you can't get anything human resource, personal related, attorney-client privilege related, without certain things being redacted. What we don't want is a lot of people trying to do FOIA requests, asking to see the information first so that they don't have to pay for it. So I don't understand all the merits to this. I just want to say that we have a clerk that's very resident-friendly. She's very emphatic. She knows how to be a clerk. And I'm just glad that we don't normally have those problems, but we can't just, like some cities do, we don't want to use FOIA denials as a screening mechanism. It doesn't appear to be the case in this particular matter, but if the court said no, at some point in time, you just have to move on. That's all I had to say about it. And thank you for your service to the city, Ms. Pamela Smith.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Massey, we'll take a motion.
Yes. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would move to affirm the clerk's partial denial of Mr. Constance October 17, 2022 FOIA request for the following reasons. Both FOIA Section 13, 1G and legal precedent in Michigan support withholding any legal communications between the city attorney and the city officials pursuant to attorney-client privilege. And secondly, the city council has not, nor will it revoke its attorney-client privilege for any of the records sought in or responsive to Mr. Constance's request.
Very good. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Bridges and Ms. Knoll. I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, it passed 6-0. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, everybody. Now we move on to number 5, consideration of an approval of the introduction of an ordinance to amend the Farmington Hills Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, to provide for amendment of retirement benefits and retiree health care benefits in accordance with applicable collective bargaining agreements, and to extend consistent benefits to exempt and executive employees of the city, CMR 11-22-109. Mr. Mection.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So as was stated before council this evening is the introduction and first reading of the revised pension ordinance. As everyone on council knows, council approved the collective bargaining agreements with the labor units and general employee group as outlined in the CMR, and as was stated, reestablishes the defined benefit pension program. We have discussions that are ongoing with one remaining bargaining unit. We hope to have that solidified sometime for the December meeting, we think. But, you know, rest assured that these ordinance revisions are necessary to effectuate the changes in the respective contracts mentioned prior, and to initiate this large administrative effort that kind of goes along with this after the first of the year in order to convert the employees over to the defined benefit pension. Lastly, the ordinance revisions were all done in collaboration with the city's pension attorney, Mr. Van Overbeck, who is in attendance this evening, and our legal experts, Ice Miller from Indianapolis, Indiana. So, Mayor Pro Tem, if you don't mind, I'd like to turn this over to our Finance Director, Tom Scribola, for a more detailed look at some things.
Thank you very much. Ms. Scribola.
Thank you. Yes, one quick clarification. We would anticipate that remaining bargaining unit would be in a position to send us something for the council's consideration in January. We would hope in January. So, with that clarification, yes. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth here. I think Gary touched on it pretty well there, but I just wanted to hit a couple of highlights that this does realize. This ordinance amendment does realize the changes in the form of an ordinance that was put before the council in the meetings in April and May, and subsequently in August and September and October, both in closed sessions and in terms of the council's approval of the bargaining agreements, the tentative agreements with all of the units, with the exception of ASME, which, as we say, we are talking with at this time. So, so also the benefits that were extended, as is traditional for Teamsters, have been extended to the general groups, general exempt groups being non-executive and executive, and then the 47th District Court is considering its options at this time. So with that in mind, the specific changes is the restoration, of course, of the Tier 1 defined benefit pension benefits for Tier 2 public safety, being Command Officers Association, Patrol Officers Association, and International Association of Firefighters. Then also the extension of defined benefit pension benefits for those Tier 2 groups that are currently in the, or were in the 401A accounts, rather, in the DC plan, being the FOPLC dispatch, Teamsters, and the two general groups, the two general exempt groups, general non-executive and general executive. So those are all contained in those two changes are contained in this ordinance amendment, as well as the establishment of a new retiree healthcare stipend for all of the non-public safety groups, being dispatch, Teamsters, general exempt groups, for the Tier 2 people in those groups. I should clarify that. And also this envisions the outlines, and matter of fact details, the provision of the purchase of prior accredited service that we talked about, whereby people can utilize their 401A assets, Tier 2 people can utilize their 401A assets or other assets that they have to purchase prior accredited service with the city, full-time service with the city, prior to the council's date of adoption of those restoration of accrued benefits. So that is at zero cost to the city. Their purchase has to represent 100% of the liability that is being added. So in that sense, it's actually value added to them in the sense that they're purchasing service that they wish to purchase within the system, and those assets are being moved into the city's defined benefit pension fund. So that is a win-win in that sense. And that'll be all at the employee's options. Final provision is Public Act 88, or reciprocity. Language has been added similar to language that is utilized by 460 other governmental entities across the state of Michigan. And that includes Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County, City of Novi, City of Birmingham, Sterling Heights, West Bloomfield, Canton, Kalamazoo, where I came from. And this is a key recruiting tool for communities to attract talent that is mid-career. And it also provides some portable options for people who are in the system. So it works both ways. This will not be applied to the calculation of benefit. These years of service that people will be able to have to enjoy from a reciprocity standpoint will only benefit their ability to vest and to be eligible for a benefit, but it will not be applied against their multiplier or final average compensation for the purposes of calculating their benefit. Just want to make that clear. So all of these, but I also want to just add that of the 100 cities that have greater than 10,000 population in the state of Michigan, roughly 2/3 are in this reciprocity program. So, so that will enhance our ability to recruit from employees within those units of government. From a costing standpoint, everything that I've described has been included in the costings that you received in April and May, and also the specific tentative, or I should say the tentative agreement specific costings that you received both in August and October. So nothing new, all envisioned, all costed, and from a costing standpoint, cost neutral to I think probably net beneficial to the city long term, but I'll stick with cost neutral as probably the easiest way to describe this. So so that is, with that elevator ride, I will stop and open to any questions, first introduction.
Any questions? Okay, very good. Then we need a motion. Oh, we have to, this is an introduction. So we need a motion and then it's a roll call vote. Dr. Massey.
I would move the introduction of an ordinance to amend the Farmington Hills Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, to provide for amendment of retirement benefits and retiree health care benefits in accordance with applicable collective bargaining agreements and to extend consistent benefits to exempt and executive employees of the city.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knoll. Any other comments? All right, very good. We'll call the roll on this.
Council members Massey,
Yes.
Knoll,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Newland,
Yes.
Bolaware,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Bruce.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it passes 6-0. All right, with that, we've reached the end of the agenda for the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded by, moved by Mr. Bridges, seconded by Dr. Massey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Good night, Farmington Hills.